Nathan Cleary had scans on his shoulder, which rules him out for the remainder of the regular season. Penrith are aiming to get him back for the finals. If you go to the NRL physio, he'll get you the best in-depth look at the possibilities and, you know, all that kind of stuff. So basically what happened on the weekend, Nathan Cleary subluxed his shoulder, which is like basically a dislocation where it pops out, pops back in. Obviously, I'm not a qualified physio, so go to the NRL physio. But when I was playing and my shoulder would sublux, obviously it was extremely painful. Sometimes you can keep playing, sometimes you can't. But even if, to my understanding, even if Cleary can rehab it, and because what they'll do is they'll rehab it where they're going to try and strengthen the muscles around it. It's basically like your hand, like a ball almost in a socket. And when it subluxes, it open, like it pulls out like that. Your shoulder ball will kind of pull out like that. And so what they'll try and do is strengthen the muscles around the ball so that it doesn't pull out of its socket. The problem is, not the problem, but to my understanding that even if they do strengthen it, it could still need surgery after the season. So again, go to NRL physio for confirmation on all this. He could come back and in the first or second or even second or third game, it could go boom, straight out again. And they could go, all right, we need to get some surgery.
Physio really appreciates DMs to his account, so just flick him a message on there, and he'll be happy to jump on. And
don't do that. The poor bloke will be hammered. So that's kind of my understanding of the injury. I tell you what, the 4 in a row was already historic. You know what? They are so close to it, and they're such an incredible organisation. We are not actually appreciating that they are favourites for 4 in a row. We're almost like, oh yeah, they could win 4 in a row. Think about what we're saying here. They could win 4 in a row. That's insane. This has just turned it up to 10 in my opinion. If he can come back with, usually that would just be season gone, probably book him in for surgery, let's focus on next season. A lot of people comparing to Cooper Cronk. Now, don't get me wrong, they're two totally different injuries. But Cooper Cronk, he got through one game. And I don't want to say he just got through one game, because what he did was one of the most historic moments in rugby league. But the difference with this one is he has to get through an entire final series of getting targeted. He will be targeted essentially any set where you can have a big boy running at Nathan Cleary, it's going to be happening. And so not only does he have to deal with that, he also has to deal with the confidence in contact. Is it going to slip out at any time? This is really up the stakes for the Penrith Panthers. And I tell you what, as a team, they're probably, in my opinion, going to have to find a way to protect him to a degree. I think they're going to probably have defensive systems that you will find him moving out to the wing at stages.
More likely than not, guess who said big boy running at him is going to be?
Nelson.
Angus Crichton.
Oh, Angus Crichton. Yes.
Probably the last back row in the comp you want.
Yeah, with those bumper bars up.
At the same time, though, if I had to pick one back row to be my Kevin Costner, my bodyguard, Liam Martin.
His job has just gone from...
So integral now.
Yeah. He's almost like the Tony Carroll to Lockyer.
He's exactly the Tony Carroll Lockyer.
And
the Bo Scott to Sowie. Yeah.
Because you want to make it so that anyone that even thinks of running down there is walking away thinking again, going, I don't want to do that. I don't want to do that. His job has genuinely gone up a notch because the traffic that was already going down... And to be honest, like, if there is one weakness in Cleary's game, sometimes defensively he can have some poor reads. Like, his contact's always good. It just defensively he can shoot up out of the line, and even that right edge is struggling with Panthers.
We spoke about it last week. The only real weakness I could find in the Panthers was that edge defensive this year has really struggled. You add this to it now as well, and how does he return? Question marks.
It's it's crazy.
Yeah, as Timmy said, that right edge between Isaac Tungo, him, like they've now got Dane Laurie playing on the wing, playing out of position as well.
Which might have been... I actually don't agree with that call to put Laurie there. I would have kept Taruba, but I understand why.
I agree with you, but it's sort of forgotten, but Ivan tried to make this move 6 weeks ago. It's just that Dane Laurie got knocked out 20 minutes into that game, and then Edwards was out again, so they moved it all around. But yeah, from what I've heard, Nathan Cleary will play finals week 1. That's their plan. And in typical Nath fashion, I think he's pretty pissed off he's out again. So you could get something.
This sounds dumb, but could you put him on ice till do or die game? Like, because any chance they won't play him against the Roosters?
They're not that good. Like, as in, that sounded really harsh.
Clip that up.
As in, like to risk going into an elimination game without putting him on the field, I think that's insane. Like, I don't think they're that confident where they'd go, you know what, we can afford to put him on ice till the grand final. Like, jeez.
Well, I think what Matty's saying is maybe week 1 of the finals.
Oh, sorry.
Just week 1.
Yeah.
So not play week 1. He only comes in for the elimination game.
Yes.
Yep.
I can see
Oh,
that.
apologies. Yes. Okay. Yeah, that's a great point. I thought you meant to the big dance.
Oh, no.
I was
Yeah.
like, holy shit. That is like confidence.
Because then at least you could play, like you play Jerome Luai at 7, you get to bring in Jack Cole-Schneider, or you could play Dane Laurie in the halves if you wanted to. They've got plenty of options there. I don't mind that idea. They'll be playing at home against Sharkies, Roosters, one of the probably Sharkies.
It'll week 1 of finals.
Yeah.
Probably Roosters.
Roosters will be. Okay.
But, like, they'll go in there not even thinking, knowing that they can beat the Roosters with Jerome Luai as a 7. If they can get through that game and they win it, or even regardless, if they can win that week 1 of finals, that gives Cleary essentially 3 weeks extra to recover.
That's true.
Yeah, that's a great point, Matty. That's actually a really good point. So you reckon they will try and do the week 1?
From what
final?
I've heard, they're going to try and have him there, yeah.
See, I like that shout, though, because that's like 3 weeks. That's a lot of time to rest a shoulder. But I guess the argument is against that may be that 3 weeks, or let's just say 2 weeks, you actually can't rehab it anymore. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like it's gotten to a point where it's either going to be stable or not stable. Because I think that it's 4 to 6 weeks was the diagnosis before it'd be good to go. And so you may get like diminishing returns where you get to the week 1 finals and they're like, look, you can sit out for an extra 2 weeks, but it's not going to make it any stronger. It's either going to slip out or it's not going to slip out.
The other thing that really surprised me the other night, and even more so now if you have got Nath coming in there with a bung shoulder, like I was very surprised Brian Toe didn't play right side the other night. I just thought defensively that was the obvious thing to do. Obviously, Ivan has forgotten more than I know, but I just would have thought to sort out that edge, you play Brian Toe out there just to try and solidify it a little bit.
To balance it out. We'll get to that in the game. With Cleary, like, this is seriously... Because the problem is that he could get through the first game. Like, it's one of those injuries that it might be the second or third game where it just goes. Like, you just don't know. What's crazy, though, is that, like, Jerome Luai, I don't know if it's exactly the same as last year, but it was a similar injury.
Yep.
And, you know, Luai was brave as anything and he did his role to a degree, but it did affect his footy. Like, I don't think anyone is sitting here... Well, I mean, maybe people disagree, but I personally think Luai wasn't playing anywhere near his best footy in the final series last year. Like, I think that it was more of a Cleary kind of... And so, like, if Luai struggled with it, you know, does that mean that Cleary will struggle with it? And also, you know, can Luai do what Cleary did last year and kind of bring them to a finals?
And I tell you what, like, the silver lining of this is, let's say he does miss week 1 of finals. Maybe it's more. Who knows exactly how it's going to end up just yet. But Jerome Luai has had, 10 or 11 games or so this year as the number 7 and the guy in this team, and he's about to get another 3 weeks to end of the season, 2 to 3 weeks, depending if they rest him at all. Like, they know they can do it without Nathan Cleary. And the time put into Luai as a 7, it's going to go a long way.
The amount of questions about whether Luai's the main man, it just keeps popping up.
Well, like if Cleary plays the next few rounds and he gets injured round 27 and Luai didn't have these games under the belt, you'd be, oh, geez, like they're in strife here. But on what we've seen this year, Luai without Cleary, you go...
But that's what I'm saying. Like, I think that if this happened last year, everyone would say, no, I don't think Luai can take him to a grand final. But so much has changed since then. And I think a lot of people are sitting there going, because of what Luai has achieved and done this year, we're all kind of sitting there going, no, actually, I think Luai might be able to do it. Now, are they a better team with Cleary leading them? Yes, I think they are. And I think it is by quite a ways. But like Luai has proven this year, every time you ask that question of can he be the man or the person that, you know, can get the job done at the tippity top, at the highest level, he's delivered.
If Cleary happened to be ruled out for the season the other night, would you still back him to win the comp? I personally think I would.
With everyone else injury-free, they would still be just my favourites. Whereas with them all injury-free and Cleary, they are like strongly my favourites. But yeah, I probably would still, just because their systems are so good.
What about you?
Yeah, as I said, provide everyone else is fit and firing, I'm still tipping Penrith. There's not a chance I'm backing against them even without Cleary, which seems absurd to say, but...
What about the story of this guy's career already at 25, 26 years old? Like, he's heading into a 4-peat. He's going to be back for finals footy. Like, it's truly like, it just, if you were to say that these happened over the last 3 or 4 years for Nathan Cleary, everything that has happened, you wouldn't believe it. You'd be like, this is too fantasy. This is just bullshit. And yet here we find ourselves, Nathan Cleary getting injured, like the one player in the entire comp that you would say like is the most important, like, well, he's the biggest superstar, and he gets injured, and it's an injury that like doesn't automatically rule him out, but if you weren't playing for finals footy, you could probably put him straight in for a reconstruction and aim towards next year. And on top of all of that, Jerome Luai had a similar injury last year, and they got into the grand final, obviously won it. Storm defeat the Panthers 24-22. I have to say, selfishly, I am so happy that Storm... Look, if Penrith had have just won, I would be like, whatever. But I'm so happy that this was a really close game, because if Penrith had have gone out and absolutely towed the Storm up, I would have been like, let's just wrap the fucking season up. It's another premiership for Penrith. I like the fact that they went there. As I said, if Penrith won by a couple of points, that's good. But they go there and win. It just makes the season more interesting from a fan. Like I hope the Broncos make it, but it's not looking likely at this stage. So from a fan that's like just neutral, I want it to be competitive. I want the games to be something where I wonder who's going to win it. I thought that the Panthers started really fast. I thought their line speed was great. I thought that on the flip side of that, though, they were uncharacteristically, like they had a few errors that were hurting the game. I thought the Melbourne Storm really opened up and dominated field position early. I think that with both sides, ironically, they have similar stuff to kind of tweak, and it's their edge defence at times. And maybe it's because we've been delivered almost perfection from like the Penrith Panthers and Storm for so long. We're being a bit nitpicky, but that really was, I guess, the downfall of both sides. Just sometimes that edge defence can be a bit hit or miss. I think with the Panthers, the hard thing for the Panthers heading into finals footy is it's becoming more and more and more obvious. It's like it just keeps growing that more people are realising, like, geez, if you head to their right edge, you probably will score points. Whereas I think for the last couple of years, it was almost like, yes, they had weaknesses. Yes, you could score points against the Penrith Panthers, but it wasn't just like obvious on a map of where you needed to go kind of thing.
Yeah, I don't think we are being nitpicky with it. I thought the game that really stood out to me was a couple of weeks ago now, when the Dolphins really went at them. Isaiah Katoa and Hamiso just picked them apart down that edge. And I agree with you, man. I think teams are coming in with the whiteboard on that week. Pin that right edge.
Just go straight there.
Have to, yeah.
And it seems to be getting results like very regularly.
Well, to the point that Ivan's making changes there.
Yeah.
Making
and
big
on
changes.
top of that, like Bulldogs are now officially the best defensive side in the competition, I think.
They are, yeah.
Which is like, it's so crazy. Penrith go from first to second, and we're like, whoa, they're now the second best defensive side in the competition. I thought it was a relatively good showing for both sides. I think, if anything, I was probably more impressed with the Storm, their ability to, like, there were periods where, that kind of like the middle period of the game, where I thought, like I've written here, Panthers just play at such speed, and it's not just physical speed, it's mental speed. Quickly identifying moments, like Cleary early on. So there was one moment. So Howarth shoots out of the line, jams, I think it was Dane Laurie or someone. He dominates the tackle. Now, most halves in that situation, they get rattled. Oh, we've been dominated, whatever. Cleary immediately identifies, oh, Howarth's jammed out of the line. I need to go attack that side again, because that's the one that's going to be the edge that isn't going to have gotten back in time because they all jammed out of the line. So they rush down there. Then there's early in the same set, Storm right side defence rushing up on Panthers, find a way to get like their ability to identify things quickly, the Penrith Panthers, and just nail it. Like there was another time where the Storm just kept rushing defence, and so the Penrith Panthers basically identified, okay, we just need to find a way to get the ball over the heads of the winger of the Storm, and there's going to be heaps of space there. Whereas a lot of other teams, if you're getting jammed in on, they get spooked and they go, oh shit, we're getting this jam defence, we're just going to die on the ball. I just seen the Penrith Panthers, I know the Storm ended up winning it, but there was a middle period there where they don't get enough credit for how quickly they identify moments in games and then just take it every single time.
And without taking anything away from the Melbourne Storm, like it should be noted, like Penrith without their 2 edge back rowers. 2 rep back rowers, that's enormous. Like, if you took Bloke and Eligatoa out of the Melbourne Storm, I'd say the same thing, obviously. I think it has to be noted, though, because those 2 are crucial to that footy side.
And you add the next choice back rower, Luke Garner, who's been in there and done a great job when called upon. He was also unavailable. But my biggest take was probably, my biggest watch going into it was, all right, my question mark has been on the middles of the Storm, and are they good enough to do it against a red-hot Penrith Panthers side? And this game was the best test of it. And it's hard to be 100% convinced on it because they did lose their edge back rollers. And all right, we're not talking out-and-out middle. It's similar enough. So, but they did a job. And they matched Penrith's middles. And we know they've got the firepower. We know they've got the points on their edges, the Storm, to beat anyone in the game. But can their middles withhold the best in the comp? And from this sample size, well, they have.
Yeah, as I said, I thought there was a period there where I think Panthers looked like they were going to run away with it, and I think the Storm deserve a lot of credit. Look, I understand that the Panthers had a couple of players out, but at the same time, you can only play what you can play. Like, you know, yes, their starting back rowers are definitely better than the current ones that they had. But are they so much better that it would guarantee a victory? Like, I'm not sure.
Yeah, no, not saying to get, like, I still think the Melbourne Storm were the better side on the night, but it is, and as you said, mate, if the Panthers would have come out and beaten them, I would have gone, fuck, they just did it without their 2 back rowers.
Yeah.
Like, it's shut the comp down sort of stuff, but I think it played out perfectly for how I look at the rest of the season.
So, yeah, the Panthers, I felt like they wrangled back momentum, but then the Storm just somehow, some way hung in there. And I think also, like, I know that he played, but, look, we're looking at Munster. He's, his 2nd or 3rd game back now? Third game back? He's been out for quite a while. Those combinations are going to take time. I thought Munster was easily the best game he's played this year so far. I thought it was so dangerous. So, yeah, I thought this was a really good game. I also thought it showed the level that the Panthers and the Storm are kind of at, that probably is a level above. Maybe Roosters land on that level with the Bulldogs just a tad behind. Funnily enough, I actually have the Bulldogs now as the 4th best team in the competition. I actually think they're currently a better side than the Sharkies are. But, yeah, I think this game really did show this is the cream of the crop. And it's just probably, depending on how the Roosters go, probably going to be the grand final. I think that, as I said, depending on the Roosters, at the moment, the Storm, Panthers and Roosters, they're probably on a tier of their own right now, especially with the whole Cleary thing happening. In regards to performances...
All right, it was Munster's 4th game back, but the first one was off the bench.
Off the bench, okay. Okay, let's talk about the Panthers first, and then we'll get into the Storm. I have to say, I disagreed with playing Dane Laurie on the wing. I know Taruva has had his defensive issues, but I haven't got enough evidence of Dane Laurie defending in the front line to think that he would be a better decision than Taruva. What do you guys think?
Yeah, I think that Dane Laurie's got himself in there just because of the workload he showed at fullback and how hard he's been going there. Once again, Ivan Cleary would obviously know a lot more than me.
And this is hindsight speaking too, by the way.
Yeah, we've been saying it for weeks on all of our shows. Like, when I look at the Panthers and that right edge the last few weeks, I would have thought Tungo was the one to move out, not Taruva, personally. Once again, Ivan would know a lot more than me, but that's what I was thinking the entire time.
Yeah, I thought the exact same. I think I said it before the game as well, that I was really surprised Taruva dropped out for Laurie. Like, Laurie's a great footballer and he's been fantastic, but he's played his best footy in the spine, whether it's obviously primarily at fullback, but 5'8" as well. Not to say he can't play on the wing and do a job, because he's a great footballer, but Taruva's an out-and-out winger who's won premierships. All right, his form's been down a little bit this year, but he's still your starting winger in my eyes. And I'm with Guru, and I think I said it last week that I'd have dropped Isaac Tungo before anyone else in that back line as well. And I think we saw the first try as well. Tungo just caught out of position. I think he sort of slipped over as well, trying to correct himself. And he is the one who's been really ordinary all year, and I don't feel like there's been a lot of accountability around it. And I feel like Taruva's copped a bit of the flack that's probably come off the back of Isaac Tungo.
Do you think it's because Taruva is off to the Tigers?
That's what I was about to say.
Yeah.
That's got to play a role, surely, right?
Surely
Has
to
to
play a role. Because in regards to the Melbourne Storm, for me, this was the best sign for the Melbourne Storm is that Munster had one of those games that we know he can have. And it's taken, 4 games or 3.5 or so, but he's starting to really click into gear. And what I love the most is early in the game with an early line break, it was him to Hughes. Seeing that connection come back together, that's when you go, okay. As long as their forwards can hold up to some of the top tier forwards when they get to the finals game, this spine, it can do crazy amounts of damage in big games.
We're having a beer before the game, and Tim's got him in Supercoach. He's like, "Oh, should I play him or not?" And I said to him, "Mate, I'm more confident he'll do well in this game than any other game, just because it's a big game." And he always just seems to stand up in these moments. And look, it wasn't his greatest game of all time or anything, but he took it to him, and that's what, like, this Melbourne side, they're just so well balanced. Like, I walked away from that going, Cam Munson was probably the best out there, but they've got Hughes, who could win a Dally medal, Harry Grant, who's arguably the best hooker in the league, and they just find a way to balance it out.
Yeah. It's like every time you look at their stats, there isn't really, outside of Hughes this year, there isn't really one standout, but geez, they all do do their role so well.
Munster, such an interesting, they need to do studies on his sporting psyche, because, comes back, and granted, it was first game's back from a pretty lengthy injury layoff, but on paper, some really soft games into Parramatta, St George, which obviously the Dragons won, and the Bunnies. Really quiet in all of them. And as Guru said, you're just circled off the Panthers. All right, this is the game I need to step up and be the difference. And it was his best game in a month by a mile. He just does it every time.
I would love to see the inverse of what happened this year. And, obviously, I'd never wish it on anyone. But if Hughesy was out for a period of time, I'd love to see Munster just have to put this team on his back.
Interesting,
see what he does.
Yeah.
Almost
would it be too much? Would it be almost befuddle him a little bit where he needs to be a free spirit? Or would he just kill it?
I'd love to see it. Yeah. I've got no idea.
It's almost similar to the Luai and Cleary, isn't it?
Yeah.
I know he's now out 5'8", needs to be, as you said, the free spirit and broken play, that sort of stuff, not get him around, but who knows?
Isn't it so interesting, as you said, game against the Dragons and the South Sydney Rabbitohs, he had almost 10 more touches in both of those games than he did against Penrith. But he just makes it count.
But I think that they're trying to find that. I think they're finding that balance of Hughesian, because I thought Hughes was outstanding as well.
Yep.
And I think they're finding that balance of understanding that, at the moment, 2024 is Hughes' year. Allow it to be his year. And as you said, he made the touches he had were less, but geez, they were impactful.
Yep.
Geez, they were impactful. Let's talk about Wishart. I mean, I know we've already talked about him a little bit, but we spoke about some of the most improved players in the NRL last year. Wishart's got to be up there. He's got to be up there. He's the kind of player that needs a club like the Storm to appreciate him, because I'm telling you right now, there are so many other clubs, probably 10 or 12 other clubs that wouldn't appreciate Wishart, wouldn't know the right things to look at to say, you know what, I appreciate all the little tough things you do, but the Melbourne Storm are the perfect club to realise the good stuff he does and bring the best out of him.
He was sitting at the Dragons, unwanted, unutilised. And Melbourne, I remember talking to his dad, Rod, on the podcast, and he sort of said that he went down there and he did some test or something on him, and then it came back that Tyron just ticked all these little boxes that they want that not every player does. So they brought him in there, and I said to Rod, I go, what position do you think is his best? He goes, I don't know, and nor does he. I don't think Craig does either, but he knows that he's the right sort of person they need.
Yeah,
at the Storm.
appreciate. Like so many clubs, they look at, is he 6'3"? Can he bench press 160 kilos? Is he extremely fast, explosive? But we always talk about it. Rugby league is about more than just the physical. A lot of it's the mental up here. And when it comes to, we talk about the fastest players in the game or the toughest players in the game. When it comes to the mentally toughest players in the game, I bet you he's right up there. I bet you he's up there.
Yeah. Look, there are match-winning tries. Then there's match-winning tries in nothing games. Match-winning tries against soft opposition. Then there's match-winning tries against the Penrith Panthers, arguably the best team we've ever seen. Then there's match-winning tries with a show and go through the middle of their pack, arguably the best middle defence we've seen in many, many years, from a utility off the bench who, you're unsure if he was going to be starting at the start of the year. That was one of the great tries we're going to see all season. And, that show and go is absolutely elite.
Yeah.
And
it's so unassuming.
Yeah.
You don't expect it from him, and he, boom, nails it.
It becomes like a welcome headache for Craig Bellamy of how do we get more minutes into this bloke? And as you know, there's a bench role is as important as a starting role in the NRL nowadays. But when you can't just slot him in for someone in the spine because they've got such an elite spine, it's tough. And we saw on the weekend, he just came on and played through the middle as essentially a ball playing lock, front row, whatever you want to call it. He's just outstanding.
That try for him on the weekend is probably the moment of the season for him. The other one that I will never forget was against you guys. Close game. He came on with 10 minutes to go, and he just got it off dummy half and just ran over. I think he ran over the top of Corey Jensen.
Yep.
Really sharp one. Just you can tell Bellamy's just sent him out and just run the ball hard. Sweet.
He's going to be tough to hold on to for the Storm.
Oh, 100%. 100%. Just quickly, I'd love to get your thoughts. Thoughts on Bellamy only using 6 interchanges? Because, so he only used 6 interchanges, and he had a front rower, essentially, Lazarus, 0 minutes. Obviously.
Interesting. I hadn't noticed that.
I don't get it.
He does that sometimes.
Yeah, and I'm also not going to sit here and argue it because they just beat the Penrith Panthers in Penrith. How do you argue with what's happened? But the speed of this game and the fatigue that's in it, all of that, and you had 2 more subs you could have made. I don't understand it, but how do you argue with a result like that?
Yeah.
Because last week, Parramatta did against Penrith. They only used 6 and almost beat Penrith as well in the game they had no right to be close in. So I would love to get their thinking behind it.
And here's another thing, like we spoke about the back rowers, of course, like definitely big outs for Panthers, but the Storm missing Christian Welch, like, you know, he's a big part of their front row rotation. And I know he's a little bit older now, but like they're a better team with Welch in it.
Yeah.
Did he potentially get free interchanges via HIAs? Is that still only used 6? But
Yeah, there were
You got
2
Cam
HIAs.
Munster,
So
you got
Lazarus
Grant
still
Anderson.
only had 0 minutes.
Yeah. Interesting.
But yeah, it is interesting because sometimes, you know, coaches just do that. They just go, no, I'm going to...
To be fair, I mean, wish he came on through the middle. I think he might have, I need to double check, but scored his try at 5'8" when Munster was off with that head clash. I mean, regardless, he scored it through the middle of the field, but...
Yeah.
God.
Yeah. Anyway, so in regards to other performances, I mean, Katoa continues to, him and Angus Crichton locked in for back row of the year right now at the moment.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think so.
Yeah.
And because he's down in Melbourne, barely spoke about. Like, I barely see people talking about Katoa.
Yeah, and it's once again, it's what we've been saying all year. Scored 2 tries. Yippee, he's a freak. I know he can do that. It's the 110 metres. It's the 35 tackles that he does week in, week out. That, to be honest with you, 4 years ago, I didn't think he was capable of doing that week in, week out.
And then you look across the other side. Sean Bloor, 29 tackles, 0 misses.
Yeah. Geez, they're scratching the surface of him, I reckon. Next year with another pre-season.
Yep. So, just incredible stuff. Pappy, I thought Pappy had a bit of a mixed bag. What I like about Pappy, though, is that he just keeps trying. But I think he had multiple errors in the same part of the field early on that really could have hurt the Storm. Obviously, they went on to win it, but I thought he had a little bit of a mixed bag. But as I said, what I love about Pappy is that it doesn't matter how many errors he makes, he just keeps trying. He keeps trying to attack, create opportunities.
Aren't they just such a, there's a few teams this week, we'll get to the Roosters, and I think that their least amount of run meters in the back 5 was 115. The Panthers' top was 140. They just spread the load across, I was about to say, 17 players across 16 players.
Yeah.
And everyone just chips in their little bit, and they just find a way every time.
Another thing I want to point out, I thought Nick Meaney's defence was much better than it has been recently.
Yep.
And I do think they've improved it a little bit, that edge, where there was a period there for the Storm where it was a huge concern. Don't get me wrong, I still think sometimes they can get caught out a little bit. But I thought Nick Meaney's defence was
better. Yeah.
Quite a bit better.
Sure.
Yeah. We already spoke about Howarth. Bro, that step that he put on Tungwall for how big he is, it is just... We're talking about a guy that, you know, they thought he was a centre, then they thought he was a back rower, now he's back to being a centre. We are just seeing the surface of what he can offer, I reckon. I reckon in a year or two's time, we're going to be talking about him like one of the better.
I think so, yeah. I don't know if you guys spoke about it last week, but I found it unbelievable that Remus Smith has been released. Remember how important Remus Smith was 2 years ago?
He was almost the core of their back.
He was the core. As soon as he came out of the team, defensively they felt a shambles and they were desperate to get him back. Now they're at the point where Jack Howarth and Grant Anderson are so reliable that they're happy to not only not pick him, but let him leave. Crazy.
Will Rawbrook's another guy that, you know, started the year very shaky. So much so that I was very close to saying that maybe he should spend some time in New South Wales Cup or Q Cup. But geez, he's been solid. He still has an error here or there in him, but I think he's just improved so much this year.
Yeah, been excellent, and as you said, just so good for their edges defensively. I think Trent Loiero is the one that starting to see what Billy saw well before picking him in that Origin camp. He's never going to be a standout. He's never going to pad the stat sheet. But, like, again, we just said Melbourne's concern going into this matchup and to win a premiership, they have the middles. He played 76 minutes at lock through the middle of the pack against the Penrith Panthers. Yeah. Ran for his metres, defended rock solid. He just so consistent, so reliable.
He suits the Melbourne so much. He suits it.